Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach. I own Aspire Action Coach based here in Southwest Ohio. You're going to love the story of an entrepreneur who comes from a legacy of entrepreneurs in his family, Zach Bradford, who's the owner of B&L Builders and Design. They're a custom home builder and remodeler here in the region. You're going to love his story, transformation of a civil engineer, deep experience in construction, now has marched out on his own with his own business. And if you're new to the spotlight, we're thrilled to have you join us. And again, we encourage you to hit subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you can receive future messages like you're going to hear from Zach Bradford today. So, Zach Bradford, welcome to the spotlight. Take a second, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and how'd you get started as a home builder?
I think that was the best intro that anyone's ever given me in my entire life. No, yeah, I'm Zach Bradford. I'm the owner and CEO of B&L Builders and Design. We got started a couple months ago. It was just kind of a couple years ago. I went on the venture and built my own home. Since I am a general contractor by trade in the commercial space before. And I just figured, why not? I'll just do this. And that way my wife will stop nagging me about building things in our current home and we can build our dream home. So we did. And I love the process. I absolutely fell in love with residential construction, which probably not many people say, but I did. And I love it. And so through that process, it kind of led me down a path. It took a couple years for me to ultimately make the move. But, I ended up breaking away from my commercial kind of contracting company a couple of years ago and am pursuing this now full time. So, I'm not just doing custom homes. I am doing remodels, some smaller projects, things like that, just to kind of get things off the ground. But yeah, I'm happy to be where I'm at. I'm glad I'm still very thrilled with the decision I made, even though I'm doing more work. But it's one of those things when you go off on your own.
For sure. So I'm curious, if maybe you kind of build upon, you talked about home building and remodeling. Who would be your ideal customers out there? So if someone's listening, they know, hey, they should pick up the phone and call you.
Well, I know one of the things that I try and I put it on my website, and it was one of the things that really I'm trying to work with is basically make construction more affordable, because I think there's a kind of a lot of people believe that whether it's kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels, full custom house, that once you add that word custom in there, things get really expensive, and I don't feel like it needs to be. For sure, you're going to spend some money when you do construction, but it doesn't have to be, an arm and a leg. And one of the things that I am trying to work through with suppliers and ultimately, working its way down to the customer is make things more affordable. Because it's, I think, one of those things where people just, assume that someone like me is adding this giant overhead, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make the normal person that works a 9 to 5 job, blue collar, and their wife's maybe a teacher, and they're able to build a custom home on their salary. And so, yeah, you have to make certain changes to things, but there are plenty of different materials out there to give you options that bring you to a lower price point while the quality of the product is still there. So
Hey, thank you for that. A great background, right? We hear a lot in the news, challenges with, supply of homes, people
oh
going to
yeah,
find in homes. So you're right in the sweet spot of all that, right? And trying to find ways to make it more affordable.
yeah.
Yeah. So kind of build upon that, right? So you've got this great background in the construction industry now on your own. I'm curious, what have you found marketing strategies that have been most beneficial for you?
So I mean, I imagine people have probably heard this over and over again, but it's, you can succeed however much you want yourself to succeed, because at the end of the day, when you work a corporate job, I think one of the things that some people tend to kind of lean on is the fact that, when you're in that job, you don't really have to do marketing. You don't really have to, like, do anything yourself. You kind of just show up at work. The work just shows up on your desk, and then you leave and you just repeat that forever. Um, So it's one of those things where, and it was new to me too, where it's, you have to find a way to find work. And so I know my background being construction did help, just because not only did I have contacts for all these contractors, but I'm able to call them and say, hey, do you want to work with me? I want to work with you, but hey, can you put my name out there too? You like working with me so much in the commercial space, I'll give you some work in the residential space if you help me get some work. So that, I know that was one of the first things I did, was I made a ton of phone calls to potential subcontractors to get, kind of dial in some estimated pricing from them. And then, ultimately kind of push my name to them too, and then word of mouth obviously helps. Social media helps too. I have an Instagram page, I have a Facebook page, I have a website, and I think being active on those pages helps too, just because then, when that person's pulling up Instagram or Facebook or things like that, and you're posting, you don't have to post every day, because I think there comes a point where people hit that unfollow button because they're annoyed by how many times you're posting. But it's like I post like maybe 2 times a week, and it's just like progress. Like, hey, I'm out here, I'm framing, these 2 bathroom walls up, or, hey, we're drywalling today. And it's just, progress pics. And it reminds people, oh, yeah, this guy does construction. And I think that's more of the thing, keeping people's heads. But I know otherwise I bought some yard signs early on so I can put signs out in people's yards when I'm on their job. And then I've also I bought like a cheap laminator off Amazon and some cheap laminating pages, and I just make my own signs very cheaply. And they're small, but the big point across is giant phone number, giant custom homes and remodels, and that's really the big kind of takeaway there, is to let people know what I'm doing. And then you can nail it to polls on, maybe don't tell the city, because I don't think it's technically like, I think it's frowned upon technically, but no one's called me and complained yet. My phone number's right there on
Yes,
every sign. So,
they know how to get hold of you.
yeah, but I mean, when you're starting when you're in a business like I am, you're driving around constantly, whether you're going to the nearest Home Depot or the Lowe's or something, grabbing something that you miss, because ultimately that's probably half of what you're doing when you first start out, because you realize that you have to make sure that you have everything and no one else, you can't rely on anyone else. You're going to be like, oh, that, drive right by that Home Depot. I haven't been here before. Oh, but there's a street pole right here on the corner. Let me just nail a sign to it. It takes, 30 seconds, so I always keep behind my seat in my car, like 20 signs and a box of nails and a hammer. So, got to get it out there somehow.
Well, yeah, you don't have to hire a big marketing firm. Sometimes you just
No.
DIY your advertising too, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, I'm certain when I'm able to, get a little more revenue, I'll explore some other options. But right now, when there really is not a large revenue stream, everything's going into like, sustaining my family, that, I have to, be minimal on that
Mhm.
aspect.
So I'm curious, you made this big jump, going from being an employee to now being out on your own as truly an entrepreneur. I'm curious, what's been a challenge that you've had during that time that you've overcome, or a key learning you've had so far on that journey?
So, probably like two things. So I am like trying to do, so when I built my own house, I did a lot of the work myself too, to just try and help out on costs. Um, and so with some of these remodels I'm doing for people, I'm trying to do the same thing, which is, do some of the work myself to just kind of help them out on cost. I'm hoping that's not a, permanent trend for sure. But, I am kind of happy to get out there again and work, rather than just be behind a desk all day. But I know one of the things is I actually started. My wife is like a huge planner obsession person, and so she got me a planner, and it has actually helped tremendously, because I've never been really one to kind of like write a lot of things down. I used to have like a book where I'd keep some notes, but that was about it. But when you own your own business and you start getting like a couple jobs under your belt, and you have to do certain things, and you're trying to do certain things by a certain time, and like try and keep track of all that, especially when you're, if you got like a bathroom remodel going on, and then you're doing like exterior work on some guy's house, and there's like just a bunch of stuff to order. No one else is going to order that material for you. You have to do it. If you do not order it, your contractor will have nothing to do when they show up to site. So it's helped with that tremendously. And that was a huge challenge because I went basically like a month and a half without one. And then like I think my wife got sick of hearing me complain about like me like missing like by a day or two on doing things. And so she just, grabbed one of, I think she had like an extra one or something in her office and just gave it to me. And that's been great.
Probably was like, here, use this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was like, I'm sick of hearing this at night when we're in bed. Um, and then, I mean, the other thing has just been like just getting pricing down because coming from the commercial space, pricing is entirely different. Even though construction, you might think construction's construction, it's not. The commercial construction world and the residential world are very two different animals, and they all have their own subset of pricing. And so it's just been one of those things where, like I said early on, I was calling all these contractors to get some pricing for them because ideally what I am trying to do is I'm just trying to make the estimating process for me less painful. And it's one of those things where I'm trying to basically, if someone calls me, I can, and they're like, hey, I need this bathroom, X, Y, and Z is what I want done. I can pull open a spreadsheet and I can get them a quote in like a couple days because I know the biggest headache that I've had in the residential world, I definitely had it when I built my own house, is people not responding. and now I know though, I'm in that space and I understand why some of those self-employed business owners don't respond because they just don't have time. And it's hard and I feel like it's people, you're not like not responding, but it's like one of those things where you want the message to be left unread because you need to take care of it. And I feel like that's because I've seen myself want to do that, but then I'm like, but you need to respond to customers to let them know you've seen their message and you're looking at it. You need to let them know that you're not just ignoring them. Same thing goes with subcontractors, obviously, as well. But, so that's been, I didn't respond to someone's text for like 3 days. And then I think it was like by the third day, I looked at it and I was like, why am I not responding? And I was like, it's gotta be, I see the unread message. So I know that there's something I need to take care of, and that's the planner kind of came into that too. Cause that was me being ridiculous. And I was like, maybe this is what all those residential guys do when I was asking a concrete guy about some pricing, he just like left me unread. And then it's been 2 weeks because he's just been that swamped that he's never gotten back to trying to respond. And now I'm probably pushed down past the first page of text messages and I'm just out of sight, out of mind at this point. So, I mean, yeah, it's been a fun process.
So I'm curious, what's your vision for the business? Do you think, I don't know, 5, 10 years down the road? What do you dream the business looking like?
Yeah, so I mean, ideally at some point I would get out of these kind of like small remodel spaces. I mean, I would still do some bigger ones. It's just one of the things I like to avoid in construction are unknowns. And when you do remodels, there are a lot more unknowns. And I just it's never fun. It was never fun in commercial when I had to go back to the owner for a change order because it always kind of stings a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's I've had to already do it on a job in residential, and it's the same process. It just stinks. It's one of those things where I'm asking for more money because it was just something that no one knew about. And so um, when you're in a lot of times when you're in new construction, you know, there will probably be no unknowns because you are building it.
Yeah.
So, you don't open up a wall and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a duct main right here for your HVAC. The entire house for the second floor runs right up through here. How am I going to get rid of this wall now that you want me to remove? So, um, ideally I move out of the remodel space and just do new construction homes. And, I'm just shooting for like maybe 2 to 4 homes a year. I think that would be kind of I'm not trying to go crazy with it. If it happens, it happens. I'm not going to say no to it, but, I know myself, I can definitely manage probably 3 to 4 homes a year. Just from my experience from when I built my own house. That would be obviously size pending, because the bigger the home, the more things that are going to be involved in it. But like I said, I'm trying to be in that affordable space. So like kind of just like middle-sized homes. I mean, I'm not going to shy away from a large home for sure. I definitely like a challenge, but yeah, so probably 2 to 4 homes.
So at this stage, the business is mostly you, not a lot of employees yet, but you got a lot of contractors you rely on. So I'm curious, how do you manage them, keep them organized?
So I mean, right now it's a lot of these people I've actually met through the commercial space, and they have LLCs for residential, which has been really nice. Um, but the biggest thing is I have actually a bid list that I made on an Excel spreadsheet. So for like new homes and things like that, I actually push that over into like a separate folder system for that new house. And then if I send out bids to them, I like mark it red. And then if I don't send a bid, it's just nothing. And then if they send me a bid back, I will like fill in their number. So then I can get a spreadsheet with all of their, numbers. And then I have like a date on when I sent it. And then, I can look at the sheet and see when I need to follow up and things like that. But on like small kitchen and bath remodels, I have just like some very specific guys that I rely on subcontractor wise. And I usually just ask them, and it's pretty straightforward. And, it's one of those things where I think, a lot of the guys I knew in residential
Mhm.
were like, well, the the home builder told me yesterday I need to be there tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Like I make a schedule in Microsoft Project Pro, because that's where I came from. And, like I right now I'm doing a double bath remodel, and I'm like refinishing like their floors in this house. And, I sent them like a whole like Microsoft schedule for their like for just that project. And they're like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just laying it out for you guys. And I'll send that, I'll just
Mhm.
PDF it and I'll send it to like the 4 or 5 guys that I'm contracting and be like, hey, here's when I need you here. So,
Okay.
and I'll be like, barring anything crazy happening, this is when I'll be ready for you. So, but I mean, with my background, I wasn't just a project manager for a couple of years in construction. I was also a superintendent for a couple of years too. So I was the main guy, like managing schedule and keeping all of the contractors kind of happy and things like that. So, and I mean, when you come
Mhm.
from running probably 50 to 70 guys on a job site a day down to 10, I mean, it's a lot different, and what I would say a lot easier. So.
Well, you've already shared several kind of lessons learned and tools you're using to make you more effective. I'm curious, any other keys to success you've had so far you'd want to share with others who are getting ready to start their journey as an entrepreneur?
I think the one of the big things would be don't undervalue your labor, because I think it's one of the things that I like the first like 2 jobs I did, I like underpaid myself because I was worried about not getting work. But I think it's one of those things where you have a rough idea on how much you think you're worth, but then you're worried that people might not go with you
Mhm.
because of that. You just need to be confident in what you do and what your process is, and understand that you are worth, probably more than the guy that you have like out there framing, because you're putting the whole team together, and you got to keep everyone in line. You got to get everyone on board. You're going to have to ultimately pay everyone. So, it's a big, if you're doing like remodels, you're probably going to be doing more than just like behind the computer stuff. You're probably going to be out there too. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I learned really quickly was like I looked at how much time I was spending, not just behind the computer, but out there on the job too. Just doing, because you're bound to miss some things. And it's one of those things like with me where I'm not the best at everything, but I do know how to do a lot of construction elements. And so, when you get to the point and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. So you're like, oh, shoot, here's my already small margin.
Yeah.
And I have to do it now myself for no money. And I have to pay for the
Yeah.
item as well. So, I mean, you're going to have, those things. So it's like, you should look at your budget again and think, this is the amount of time that this project's going to take. Am I really just worth that amount?
Yeah.
So I think I don't know if it's widespread where people think that, but it definitely was an initial thought in my book where I just, I didn't really realize it until I did like, two or three jobs. And I was like, I don't want to be the guy that everyone's like, yeah, hire this guy. He's cheap. Like, I don't know if I really want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that's like, hire this guy. He does a really good job and he's very well priced, not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. So many folks fall into that same kind of trap, and they really struggle to get out of it. Right. Because there's a lot of emotions wrapped
Oh yeah. And,
around
and once
pricing.
you start setting that bar, and especially if you do work for a while at that bar, then it's really hard to escape that
Mhm.
bar because then everyone expects it.
So, so I'm curious, Zach, has there been I don't know, a book or a podcast or a leadership individual who's really been great words of wisdom to you, kind of inspired you?
Um, I mean, I know I've been inspired by a lot of. I know you kind of introduced me this way, but I've been inspired by a lot of my family members. My dad ran his own business. My uncle runs his own business now. My grandfather ran his own business. My grandfather was a civil engineer too, and did a lot of like land development things, which was really cool. But just seeing the things, especially the day to day with my dad, where it's funny because it's the things that I go through now, and he's laughing too every time I talk to him about it because he's like, "Oh, I went through those same things right when I started," and he is trying to give me advice on some things to watch out for. And even though we're in completely different industries, it's still kind of the same thing. Um, but yeah, just seeing him come home every day, and there'd be some days where he's working late because it's his thing, or some days he's golfing at 1 o'clock on a Friday. Definitely saw a lot more of the golfing later in his career, and it made me very jealous. But I definitely saw what could be from owning your own business, and I wanted a piece of it. What can I say?
No,
So
here's a family tradition, right? Learning
yeah, yeah, right,
from your parents and grandparents. So,
yeah.
so as we wrap up here, Zach, what are the best ways for folks to stay connected with you and BNL and to learn more and follow in the future?
So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn at Zach Bradford. It should be BNL should be listed as the owner there. And then you can also reach out to me on blbuildersanddesign.com. There's a section at the bottom of the website to fill out info, and it gets sent directly to me.
Okay. All right. Encourage folks to go check that out. So as we wrap up, Zach, always curious, leaders and entrepreneurs, what are you inspired by today?
I some of the jobs I have been getting, I've heard this from like a like probably I've only had like 7 jobs, and I've probably heard this from at least half of the people that I've talked to, and it's they've wanted the work done for years. They just didn't know who they wanted to do it. And it was one of those things where, I don't know if I just got lucky and like a friend of a friend told them, or maybe they saw a small street sign nailed to a pole, or, there's, at least in this industry, there is plenty of work out there, especially in the residential space. There's a ton of work that needs to be done. It's just a matter of getting in someone's head, and them giving you the chance to take a phone call and see what they need. And like I said, at this point, I'm not, if someone calls me and they're like, hey, I need you to swap out 3 doors around my house and make them a bigger size or something, like I'm still going to take the work, because at this point any marketing is good marketing for me. And even if it's me going to some guy's house and helping him out for a day for 3 doors and I make $200, like it's not a big deal. Like so it inspires me by the amount of work that I know is out there, and it pushes me every day to try my best and be my best, and do good work for people. So
All right, Zach Bradford, thank you for taking the time out to share your story with us here on the Business Spotlight.
Thanks for the invite, Todd.
Yeah, very inspiring story. I know a lot of great things ahead, given your background, your drive, and kind of your practical approach to things. So thrilled to see what's around the next corners for you.
Thank you.
All right. To our viewers, we're always grateful for you taking part in our series as well. If you could please hit like, that helps us share the message even more broadly. And as I mentioned before, if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you can receive future inspiring messages like you heard from Zach Bradford here today. With that, I hope you all have a terrific day. Thank you.